start with prayer and sorry. I'm nervous. Start with a moment of silence. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first order of business is to announce our purpose of executive session. Mark, do you want to?
It was to discuss legal matters.
All right. We have one recognition. Is Jim here?
We said we would have the gun race winners here, and I don't know what happened to the one that could be here. The first winner was Lily Van Aiken. She's 2 years old. They live in Applecross, and this was their first year at the day. They're quite impressed with it, so they'll be back again. The second place winner is 9 years old. She got $50. First place winner is 100, and they're out of town. And they live off of Food Road, and they've been there 3 times. And the third place, 25, is Bob March from Coastal, and his wife and his daughter come all the time, and they convinced him to come this time and bought him a ticket, and he won the $25. So
Thank you, Ginny, that's great, that's fun.
Jen,
Yes.
no picture?
they're not here. So, we'll have to
Take a
go-
picture of you.
Very nice.
Need a motion to approve expenditures?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Do I have a motion to approve the Borough Council minutes from July 6th?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor? Motion carries. Citizens to be heard? Come up to the podium.
Good evening, Mr. Rakoff, my license.
See you next time, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, you got that first? Patricia, Haratunian. Really, you need me to spell that? No, okay, 107 West Euclid Avenue. And what I'm here to talk about is of a serious nature, and it does exceed the normal 5 minutes, but Citizen Elaine Babcock has given me her minutes, so for continuity. Okay, I'm here to discuss money. I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm here to explain to the people why the Attorney General's office has been contacted on behalf by the citizens for this borough. Everyone on this dais, with the exception of Mr. Thomas, should listen very carefully to what I have to say, because each one of you has been involved in some way in what appears to be tens of thousands of missing donated funds. You may want to ask yourself, who put you in this position? And remember, I either have emails or audio or video to support what you're about to hear. In February 2014, in an abrupt motion led by President Pizarro, was made to disband the Historic and Parks Commission that was not discussed in any legal meeting prior to that date. The legality of this action is still in question. That evening, current Historic and Parks Commissioners, members of the Downingtown Area Veterans Memorial, and citizens asked what was going to happen to the approximately $35,000 in our account, made up entirely at this point of donated funds. Now, by nonprofit law, I don't know borough law, but from the nonprofit law, we ran solicited fundraisers. This means you cannot use the donations we took in for anything other than what it was raised for or a purpose voted on by those charged with its acquisition. Since there is no new roof on the concert pavilion, security cameras in the park, new steps and walkway at the log house, or a concrete pedestal for the civil war cannon to reside, we know it wasn't used for what it was legally designated as reflected in past Historic and Parks minutes. After careful examination of the borough budget, to which there's only one version, for 2015 and 2016, there is no mention of the money anywhere. Even if it's absorbed into the general fund, I believe it should have had a designation that it's donated funds and linked to specific projects. So let's get into who was in charge of the money. Councilperson McLone, after voting to disband the Historic and Parks Commission at February 2014 meeting, President Gazero then appointed you as council liaison to the now existent commission. This pretty much means you were the only one associated with the commission and its money at that time. It appears that the money disappeared, unfortunately, on your watch, since I can track its existence throughout 2013. I don't know where you get your information from that bases your decisions, but it looks like you received bad intel and were possibly set up. Councilman Rakoff, at the same meeting, 2 members of the Downingtown Area Veterans Memorial, as well as our commissioner, Tony Babcock, asked you to release $5,500 so that we could continue with a fundraiser for the cannon, or at least lay the bottom base of the pedestal for the cannon in the Downingtown War Memorial Triangle. You did the right thing, we appreciated it, and made the motion to release the $5,500 from our account to the Downingtown Area Veterans Memorial Fund. Your motion was carried. It was a clean motion. There were no caveats and there were no conditions. The money was never moved to the Downingtown Area Veterans Memorial. I hold in my hand emails that went between myself and Manager Sullins that stretch into April 2014, asking when would the money be received. The first one on February 7th says, Tricia, after we spoke at the meeting about the $5,500, I said I would need to discuss with council, since they made a motion to earmark the money for cannon restoration. I'm not exactly sure how they want to proceed. I will need to get back to you after I speak to them. This email does not reflect the motion that was made to simply move $5,500 by Councilman Rakoff to the Veterans Memorial. The other ones go on. Some of them were never answered, and it goes all the way to March 6th, with me saying, hi, Steve and Judith. I'm really confused. At last night's meeting, it was stated that if we wanted the money for the cannon, we would have to produce receipts in the form of purchase orders and reimbursements so that we could get any of that $5,500. Now, in my personal opinion, it wasn't exactly prudent for whoever they are that Mr. Sullins is referring to withhold money that was legally voted on to be moved to an account, and then to state that receipts and purchase orders would need to be issued so that they could monitor the spending, especially when the recipients are a veterans group and the Blue Knights law enforcement group. Especially when one of the men on our committee for that cannon motorcycle run, what we call the cannonball run, that was supposed to benefit the cannon, works for the Attorney General's office in the criminal division. So you can kind of see how we've connected the dots. Now, to this day, that money was never handed over. Councilman Day, President Gazero apparently failed to inform you about this money. He has you and your current commission out defrauding the public, soliciting money for something that the old commission completely financially covered. In that $33,000 is enough money to put a pedestal as well as the other projects I originally mentioned. It's hard to believe that you didn't know about the money's existence on one hand when 2 of your current commissioners that you recommended had worked so hard to raise it. Ginny Pierce was on the old commission, predating myself of 2008, and her granddaughter, Jessica Hutter, in the last 3 ghost walks that raised the bulk of those funds. They were both privy to treasurer's reports, handouts in writing, and every meeting that we had financial activity, there was a treasurer's report. In my hand, I have the bank statement. It's the last one I have, from May 7th, 2013. It says at this time we have $30,771 in our account. Now, if you add from the 2013 in May, it means that we haven't done the duck race yet, the craft fair, we made $1,205, $6,600 from the ghost walk, plus incidentals and the park kiosk income. You have over $38,000, minus some expenditures. There are other discrepancies too that I don't understand. At one meeting last year, President Pizzaro publicly called for the praise for Councilman Day in raising the money to have the cannon completely restored. This is reflected in the minutes. That restoration cost $7,000 total. I know this for a fact because Frank Peachin, Downingtown resident and member of the Veterans and Blue Knights, who also appeared here that February 9th, he and I hand-delivered the first $3,500 check to Jeff Stafford of the Cannon Restoration Company. And that was done the first week of October 2013, before Councilman Day even got appointed. So I'm confused. If you raise the money for the cannon in its entirety, as Councilman Pizzaro said, then there should be $7,000 still sitting in our account, which means that we're looking for more like $42,000 than $35,000. So that makes 3 council members who need to account for money that they may not have even known existed. And I keep saying approximately because no final accounting was ever put forth. My request for it in December so I could finalize our year-end accounting for the Historic and Parks Commission was ignored or explained that Judith was too busy. As I found out in early 2014, I was blocked from the account in preparation for the dissolution of our commission. Even our core partners in the Ghost Walk, the Downingtown area paranormal people, never got paid or reimbursed for their expenditures for the 2013 Ghost Walk because my financial reimbursement requests and purchase orders were denied retroactively since I was no longer allowed to write them but didn't know it. I told them maybe the mayor could get their money, but they were never paid either. So what is done, but I acknowledge the fact, and so do the other people that work with me, that maybe some of you have gotten caught in crosshairs of something that you didn't know was happening. So I'm just stating the same questions that are coming your way. Where is the money? And if you believe that one of you has done something behind your back illegally, or even slightly shady and is compromising your integrity, now's the time to do something about it. Thank you.
And we did an answer for her.
I can certainly, our audit has been completed tonight. There is no missing funds. And I think you have your opinion on what happened. I think the cannon restoration was $13,000. You said you delivered a check yourself. I hand-delivered 2 checks. And I have all the backup paperwork for it. So
You handed me and Frank Peachin a check to deliver in October of 2013 for $3,500.
I don't recall that, but it may be. But I would invite anybody, attorney general or whoever, if you think there's money missing here, you're sadly
Then
mistaken.
where did it go?
I'm sure it's here.
Prove it.
We'll look into it. Anybody else from citizens to be heard?
Come on.
I used to would be over the 5-year limit in the Amesbury Brown in East Brandywine Township. And I'm borrowing 25 house minutes. Okay,
For the record, we kind of stopped doing that borrowing thing when we
Yes, sir.
instituted the club.
I will talk as fast as I can. Okay, this is actually hopefully to the audience here.
Okay.
I consider it an embarrassment and an insult that the local government has deliberately neglected to properly maintain the mill race, the lakes, and land in Kardon Park. Not many people realize that there is a mill race with historical significance, or even know how the borough got its name. What's also vitally important is to note that there is a necessity to maintain and protect the environment around us. In 1716, Thomas Moore dug the mill race to power his grist mill. The race starts about half a mile up Struble Trail, where there's a culvert or weir on the east side of the boundary line, right next to where Blizzard's Run flows into the creek, plus a low dam. Moore died in 1738, and in 1739, Thomas Downing bought 561 acres of Moore's land that included the grist and race. The hamlet was then called Milltown because the grist mill was the first industry in the area. Farmers from the eastern part of Lancaster County, Warwick Hills, Doe Run Valley, for different township, and devotions. This information comes from Charles Paypacker's book, History of Downingtown, Chestertown, PA, written in 1909. At any rate, they all came over to Downing's Mill, because it was the only one there. Eventually, Milltown became known as Downingstown, and then finally Downingtown. The mill was operated by the Downing family until 1848, when the property was sold to David Shellmeyer. The Shellmeyers owned the mill and continued to maintain the race until 1895. The mill was sold to S. Austin Vicking, who manufactured paper goods and their products. In 1958, the Vicking Company sold all or most of its property to Thomas Stock Paper. What I'm about to read to you is from the Shellmeyer deed of 1848. The same or similar language is written into all the deeds right up to the deed that was received by Thomas Stock in 1959. Together with the mill race or watercourse now dug and used to convey the water to the aforesaid grist mill, supposed to be 12 feet in breadth and a free bonded passage of 1 perch of land wide on each side of the same race. Perch is about 17.5 feet. I lost my place. And the race, the land is supposed to be left open, so David Shellmeyer can forever pass and repass at all times to repair and amend the mill race. And the privilege of entering and passing on the land adjoining the mill dam to amend and repair the said mill dam at all times, or whenever Shellmeyer, his heirs, and so on and so forth, may think necessary and do as little damage as possible. I'm amending it, I'm sorry. The word is too odd for me. And the right to the tail race from the said grist mill that passes through certain lots and land lately conveyed by Charles Downing and Joshua Sharpless, assignees of William Downing. The width of said tail race at the bottom is to remain 12 feet wide, with such a slope or inclination of the embankment that will best preserve and David Shellmeyer and his assigns will have the free and undisturbed right to enter the premises at all times, to remove all and every obstruction to the easy flow or passage of the water from the one end of the race to the other. The mill race was dug in 1716. A dam and a water or grist mill were built in 1716. All of this is over 170 years before the paper mills monopolized the town that was named after Thomas Downing, who helped Milltown become a flourishing community. Imagine that. A small community of industrial mills being powered by water from a race. I love it. Fast forward to the 1960s. Between 1962 In 1978, Borough Planning Commission and Council saw the importance to acquire the 50 acres, now known as Kardon Park, to protect it from development. It was their desire to keep the area as a passive park and much of it as natural as possible for educational purposes. In 1965, PennDOT was building the first section of the Route 30 bypass. The engineers made sure that the water, the bridge that goes over the creek and the race, there are 4 pipes that run under their concrete wall, so that there's a continuous flow of water in the race. Oh, and they also needed a place to dump the stormwater runoff. The mill race accepts stormwater from the bypass in at least 4 places. And I think it was in 1970 when the borough received federal and state funding to reconstruct Fourth Lake and the silt pond above it, and incorporate the race itself into Lakes 2 and 3, and around the first lake on the other side of Penn Ave. This reconstruction actually helped the flow of water from the creek through the race and lakes and helped considerably with flood control. The borough maintained the park and the waterway from the dam through the riparian buffer, the land which is owned by the county, and through the park, under the dam, and up to the creek again, just right over here. You can see it here. In 2009, the borough stopped maintaining Kardon Park and the mill race. The regular mowing stopped. Invasive grasses, vines, and wildflowers, some of them poisonous that you can see on the side of the street on Penn Ave, took over the open fields. During storms of previous years, trees that fell into the lakes are still there. Cattails were allowed to grow out of control and obstruct the flow of water from Second Lake into the little pond in front of it, and so on. Because of the obstructions in the mill race, the wetlands, and the lakes, fresh water has not been able to flow through the race and lakes and into and through Kardon Park. And I remember asking the Chester County Water Resources Authority to remove the obstruction. I pleaded, but I was told that an interested party is involved. And an acquaintance of mine told me that he had asked the same thing, but he was told that there are competing interests. And so the county did nothing to stop the erosion from going into the race and the creek. In June 2010, the large tree that had been stuck on the low dam for years was removed by dragging it out of the water with a winch. Shrubs were removed from the side of Struble Trail, and a small bulldozer, sort of like a Tonka toy, I think, because there's not much room for a big one, was used on the land there to further drag the tree to where it now sits in pieces just above the mill race, right at the beginning of it. There was a torrential downpour on July 10. The amount of erosion that occurred on that day was incredible and devastating. The land, no longer packed ground, eroded into the mill race, obstructing the flow of water from the creek and Woodward's Run. With every storm, more erosion and sedimentation falls into both the creek and the race. Yes, with heavy storms, water does make it through there and into the race, but it's just pushing the sedimentation further down into the mill race. In September 2011, Chester County Maintenance Department hired an outside company to mow the grasses on both sides of Struble Trail. This company mowed vegetation on the slopes that go down to the creek. They did the same thing on the hillside of the trail, mowing. It was more like seeing exploded saplings and small shrubs. The erosion was immediate with the first rain event, and since then, stormwater and runoff flows down the hill, over the trail, and sheets over the riparian buffer. And this has caused deep channels in the buffer and brings sedimentation and erosion directly into the creek. Had it been maintained, the mill race would have taken that water, carried the runoff to the lakes in Kardon Park and beyond. And it would have been able to recharge the ground in Kardon Park. It would have been immeasurably helpful.
Sarah, do you think you could?
Yes,
you
I'm
could
almost
finish in about
done.
a minute?
I am almost done, sorry. The problem here is that it keeps getting worse because nothing is being done to maintain this area. The standing or stagnating water has caused a multitude of environmental problems in all the waterways of the borough. Without the flow of water, leaves settle in the lakes and the floor of the lakes and the race and the creek rise. What used to be a foot deep is now about 5 inches. Not a good thing when it floods. Without the flow, with the minimal of flow of water, standing water, standing water, it's a favorite place for mosquitoes to breed. And that's the biggest problem besides that. Now consider this, from 1716 through 2008, the mill race was kept clear of debris and obstruction. And actually, the entire mill race and dam were included in an application to be placed on the National Register of Historic Places. The fundamental importance of the mill race and dam are part of the history of the borough. Destroying any part of this effectively destroys the potential historic resource. The restoration of the mill race, the lakes, wetland, and in everything else in the waterways is absolutely necessary. So, what happened?
Sarah, I gotta cut you off, I'm sorry. We're over your 10 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I appreciate the history
Okay,
lesson.
but what I do have at my share is the first 6 pages of the stormwater management ordinance that was voted on and approved December 4, 2013. And I really hope that you do take the time to look at this. It's the 4 pages, and consider what the borough has not done to correct the damages that they had from.
Sarah, why don't you come to the park, you know how our roof is going out, we cleaned up a lot along the waterway, why don't you come to the Park and Rec, and we'll see if we can work with Brandywine Conservancy to do a report of what we need to get done, because we have to start there. So, do you
Does this
think you would
include
come?
the mill race on Kardon Park and beyond it?
Well, it's a park, it's part of our Park and Rec, so yes, absolutely.
It is?
So come and talk with us, okay?
Okay.
Borough Council acknowledges a park.
Thank you.
Whoops.
Why is Josh not here tonight? I spoke with him last week, and he really sounded like he was going to be here for certain reasons. So I'm here about Billboard Gate again. Alex, I'm going to ask you all these questions. Why are we on deferred business every week and we have no updates? It's been 4 months. In 4 months, we've heard only about trees. The residents want a second opinion from a solicitor.
We have an update tonight. Once we get their citizens to be heard, it'll be the first thing we talk about.
If the residents get a solicitor, we don't want that solicitor already to be in bed or on board with Catalyst. We want somebody that's going to be fair. We don't want certain people on council, certain people that are not here tonight, to say to the solicitor, hey, we're going to bring you on board, but we want you already to agree with what's done. We want fairness for the residents. And again, how would you like it if this billboard was coming in your dining room or bedroom? Would you like it, Alex? Answer me, yes or no?
Bobby, yeah, what do you want me to say?
We need action. It's been 4 months. We keep coming here. Kelly couldn't be here tonight because of her child. She has a petition. We have a lot of things going on. We need our borough to do something for us. A billboard should never shine on a residential community at all. Thank you.
Any more citizens to be heard?
This is a full of
all kinds of educational stuff tonight, isn't it? It's really
Just to be passed in. Passed down.
Yeah. And then I have extras here for people if anybody wants to follow along there. And then, the other thing I had, I didn't count these. There's me and Laura now.
I want to see it now. Okay. Okay, there's one. What's this one? What's this one? It's
So, Ann Feldman, 102 Lake Drive. And there's, I was kind of deciding, should I do this as citizens be heard or not? You know what, I think citizens be heard is probably the best place for this. This is really just kind of some education for council. So you have in front of you sort of this spreadsheet here. So Kardon Park, and I think there's a lot that council is not aware of just over the years because you're new and then just the different changes are made. So I kind of really wanted to put this together so that you understand the full picture going forward. It is very important as things progress. So Kardon Park was sold in 2007 for about $8 million. Okay, $2.3 million of that was going towards the new firehouse. So if you remove that, the borough would have realized about $5.7 million from the sale. But then the amendment that council approved, you guys approved in December 2015, that has the borough getting a maximum of $3.05 million. So we've gone from 5.7 down to 3.05. Don't know if you're aware of that. I think you need to be aware of that. So that is a drop of 65%. That's pretty significant drop in the price of the sale of the park. And one of the reason was in both instances, in 2011 and then again in 2015, the purpose was to lower the purchase price in order to offset the buyer's unanticipated legal expenses. So you have to ask who do you represent? Okay, and that's a question that every council member has to ask of themselves and make a decision, who do you represent? Because in this instance, it seems kind of odd because if a purchase price would drop, there's really no reason other than to benefit one party. That's who's being represented. So in order to understand the changes brought about by the 2015 amendment, we'd have to compare it side by side with the 2011 agreement. What council was provided was a summary, and even if you look at the 2015 amendment, it says, okay, delete this paragraph, add this, delete that. The only way you can really understand those is have it side by side. It was a lot of work to sit down and work through all of these paragraphs, all of the deletions, all of the additions, all of the changes. And that's what you have here, okay? One of with the 2015 amendment, even though it was said it was not many changes, the entire thing was revamped. The 2011 agreement of sale was entirely revamped. One was that the base purchase price for the property, it was removed entirely. The price is now based solely on the sale of the housing units that are going to be built on land that is simply going to be deeded over to the buyer. There's no purchase price. There's no purchase price. Another significant change is that the borough will have to pay to remediate the public parkland. You'll see that on parcel 1A, okay? If the courts continue to maintain that parcel 1A is public parkland. And I will say that the courts have never found that it is not. Okay, that has consistently been, parcel 1A has consistently been dedicated public parkland. So, so you kind of figure that it's going to remain that way. But anyways, based on testimony about the remediation cost, which was over $1 million, if you based on that, I'm guesstimating the cost to remediate just that parcel 1A to be in the neighborhood of about $450,000. I don't know if that's a pure guess. I just took the whole thing and divided it by 3. So the borough's mantra has been, the third significant change, I'll do that real quick, is that the park property, and you'll see that on the little map, the park property, that's going to be sold to the developer for $1. All that property, $1. And then there are going to be some changes made to it, and then it's going to be given back to the borough. But why? Why? Why is the borough reducing the price? It's all because of the legal fees that the buyer is incurring. But I'm not here to argue legal stuff. I'm here to just educate you as to why decisions were made, why certain things were put in place. And then that's in writing. I mean, I'm not making that up. That's right there. That's why these changes are being made. So, so the borough's mantra has been, and if you think about it, if you know anything about the history, it's been, we can't afford to remediate the contaminated park. We can't afford it. Thank goodness we have this developer coming in who's going to remediate it for us because it's so dangerous. And well, if that's the case, all of a sudden now you guys just agreed to have the borough pay for the remediation, significant parts of the remediation of the park. Like, okay, so this isn't making sense. It's not adding up. When the RFP was written in 2006, the reason for the sale of the park was to get a new firehouse. Around 2008, a grant to clean up and reuse brownfields was available. So suddenly, the DEP approved park now became a brownfield. It was approved by DEP, it was fine as a park, but all of a sudden it became a brownfield because it was grant money available. So from there, the park was a danger, and there was no environmental expert that ever recommended putting up those signs. Those contamination will walk off the trail. Those signs, it was recommended to put up those signs by a solicitor, by an attorney, a lawyer, who was representing the borough, who it was a legal strategy. It wasn't an environmental expert saying, don't do that. In fact, in testimony, DEP said, no, don't put up signs. We never had a reason to put up signs. So that was a legal rule, a legal strategy. I don't know about it. So I want you to, as far as the, hold on 2 seconds, because I'm trying to summarize this a little, condense it a little more. I'll stop with this. I've invested many hours going through all of the RFPs, all the agreements. There were 3 different RFPs. There were the 2007 agreement, an amendment, another amendment, the 2011 agreement of sale, the 2015 amendment. That's a lot of paper. That's a lot of numbers, and that's a lot of facts. And I went through them all, and I really did a lot of research, providing with a comparison of the 3 agreements. So I strongly encourage you to sit down with the 2011 agreement and the 2015 amendment and look at this for yourself. You need to be educated. You need to understand what the agreement said. Okay? You need to understand what you voted for. Instead of taking somebody that's saying, oh, 3% is great, it's a really great deal, it's a really great deal. Do it home yourself. Okay? You can't afford to take somebody else's analysis of this. So, refunding the deposit, that's another thing. I don't understand that. It's important for council to understand what you voted on with the 2015 amendment, so that you are informed, you're prepared, you're not ignorant of the facts, and that you're prepared to defend that decision if it's ever necessary, or to ask questions when and if and when another reduction in the price is requested. That's the whole purpose for this, to just please understand what's going on with the voting.
Any other citizens to be heard? Yes, sir.
My name is Glenn Johnson, I live in 157 Jefferson Avenue. I want to know why down on Brandywine Avenue, Jefferson Avenue, there's a bridge. There's trees all over there, and that's what gets jammed in there when it's flooded. Why aren't these trees cut down?
Where's it again?
Jefferson Avenue and Brandywine. There's a bridge on there where it gets flooded, and it gets jammed up, and then it all comes back up to us.
You're asking why don't the trees get cut
Cut
down?
down, yeah.
Is that right by
Do
the,
you wait till it gets flooded, and everybody else gets flooded out, and then do it?
is that Park Road? Is that,
No.
It is Park Run,
is Park Road?
yeah. Park Run's the creek that you're talking about right
It
there.
was behind the tree maintained. I know the one area of the park run is over by Green Street and Main Street Village, and I don't know if it's Main Street Village or Green Street Views, but there's something where they would be maintaining that part, I believe, and Tom would know that. I don't know who would maintain the part of Park Run.
The borough owns part of it, Eco owns part of it, and private property owns part of it. I mean, I can take a look at it.
You can't strip the tree out. Wouldn't that be?
We don't want to clear the trees from the embankment. If there's something falling down.
Inside the bridge, I mean, inside the creek, the trees growing up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We'll take a look at it.
Yeah, if it's still a problem, like in a month or something, should you come back and let us know, or we can just, I don't know. we can-
Any other citizens in here? All right. Moving on. Further business. First item is Downingtown Outdoor LLC. We did receive a second legal opinion. I'll let Mark give a summary of what,
So without talking too much about it, the attorney that the borough requested did concur with my opinion that Downingtown Borough followed all the necessary procedures in issuing conditional use, and that's really all I'm going to say about it.
essentially the borough has no legal standing, based on two legal opinions.
How convenient.
We do have an update with the trees. We're moving along on that. We're still working. Steve, if you want to give it.
How the hell are trees gonna help us?
The trees we're hopefully on target for September. I spoke with the sign company. They brought out an arborist and an engineer and looked at the site. They requested a few things being brought in, fill dirt and things like that to build a berm, but I think we're on schedule for September, so, for the berm and tree planting.
I have a question. Bobby Joe Bruno, 302 North Lake Drive. I just spoke with Kelly, and Kelly says, Steve, that you're supposed to give us updates all the time. She never hears from you, we don't hear from you. I think it's absolutely absurd that a second solicitor didn't find anything wrong.
I'm not an attorney.
I mean, meeting with senators, they find something wrong. It's unbelievable. I think you already knew what your opinions were.
No.
I hope you get a billboard in the backyard one day.
All right. Next item, conditional use order for Morris Realty Advisors.
That was the conditional use hearing that was held at our last meeting. We did not take a vote on it. That was for the fee in lieu of for 2 parking spaces for an additional apartment in the downtown district of 107 East Lancaster Avenue. Tonight, I handed you the decision in order draft. If you're fine with the 2 parking spaces, we ask that you vote on that this evening so we don't violate the 45-day timeframe.
Motion to accept the decision and order as written.
Second.
Discussion? No discussion from the board? All right. All those in favor? Motion passes.
Here's a good question in relation to this. The fee in lieu of parking. my only question, I was thinking about bringing up earlier, is that with the fee in lieu parking, and so people are still going to park somewhere, they park in the garage. My concern is that we, and it wouldn't make, I mean, I vote against this or anything, but my concern is that we're giving a fee in lieu, and we're kind of using up the parking spots that we have available. You know, we keep kind of like, almost not selling those spots, but you know what I mean? If you have 10 spots in a municipal lot, and then you give two spots fee in lieu here, 2 spots fee in lieu there, 2 spots, all of a sudden, it's like you've got all these people that are expecting to park there, and we really don't have it. So, is there any way that you have some sort of a log or listing that you can sort of share with council, the number of new spots that have been granted and where those people are?
Well, I think the real estate has always been there. I mean, whether they're using the parking spaces or not, I mean, there's not really been any fee in lieu of for additional construction. So all the property's been there and the people have been parking somewhere. So I don't think it's that great, but take for instance the fee in lieu of that we received from Station Taproom. We were able to build an additional, I don't know how many spaces on the west end, and that all goes to it. And some of the fee in lieu of we got went to paving the parking lot up next to 4J's on Beach Street this year. I think that was $10,000. So it's improvement on the current parking, it's addition of parking. And I mean, I think you have to really look at it if it was new construction and they wanted to pay fee in lieu of for 50 spaces that we don't have. But this has all been existing construction, so I don't think we're really expanding bricks and mortar. It's just whether they use the parking or not, that's the law. So, I mean, one day I assume that the borough will embark on a parking garage downtown, and this money is in the account to be saved for that. So,
But you understand what I'm saying, though, that people.
I can tell you probably exactly how many fee in lieu of parking dollars we've received. Not all have been for construction. I mean, the only thing that actually took parking was Giorgio's outside dining. We received 2 spaces for that, but I can give you a breakdown of how many fees we've received for fee in lieu
That's not,
parking.
the fees and parking, really, and that's not really my primary concern. I just don't want to be in a position where council grants a fee in lieu and it actually is hurting people because we've already done fee in lieu for that particular location and it just can't handle it. That's all.
It's under more conscious thought before.
Yeah, so in other words, the council would need your input or Tom's input to say, you know what, we've kind of done fee in lieu of in this area a little bit too much and we might want to kind of back off. That's all. I just wanted to bring that up to ask for future input to make sure we don't make stupid decisions.
Thanks, Sam. All right. On to new business, 2015 audit review.
Yeah, tonight we have obviously Carrie, Finance Director. We have folks from Borough, I guess Pam Baker will be presenting tonight.
Edmund Fasolaria.
I can't pronounce it.
Supervisor. Hi, I'm Pam Baker, and I'm an audit partner with Barbican Gordon Company. And I believe you may have received electronic copies of the audit, but we brought you the bound copy. So if you had a chance to look through the one that was electronic, this is the same one. It just doesn't say draft on because we put it in a nice fine bound copy. So what I'd like to do is just take a few minutes tonight. If you did have a chance to look over or if you have any questions, this is for the audit for the year ended December 31, 2015. So if you have any questions, if there's anything I can point you to, I'll be happy to do that. I'm not going to go through, of course, the entirety of this document. It is 63 pages long. But I am going to point out just a few things in it that hopefully will just kind of give you a sense of the results of the annual audit. So as you know, this is the first year that Carrie, your new finance director, went through this process. And I can tell you from our experience with Carrie, he certainly jumped in with both feet. And even though this wasn't a year that he really lived, he really went above and beyond to really understand it and to work with our staff and to get to you tonight this finished audit report. So I'm going to ask you just reference point page, the first pages 1, 2, and 3. This is our independent audit report. So what we do as part of that annual process is our team comes on site and we actually look for not only your final balances, we get all the financial information, much of it from the information that you're providing on a monthly basis as part of your routine, budgetary reports and things like that. We, though, look at the process. So we look to see, are there good checks and balances, okay? So if one person, if someone orders a good or service and it comes in, is somebody authorizing that? Is there an approval process? Are there appropriate checks and balances on the checks? Same thing on the revenue side, same thing on payroll. So we actually work to understand how your controls work. We document that and then we test it, okay? When it comes to all of your banking and investment balances, we confirm those with third parties. If there is revenue that's coming to you from other third parties, we confirm with them, just to make sure that it goes in the right spot, in the right bucket, in the borough, and that it's all accounted for. So hopefully, that's what, at the end of the day, we're able to report to you. So as a result of that, that's what pages 1, 2, and 3 kind of say, okay? If you look at page 2, the third paragraph that's labeled opinions, this is where we give you the results of doing all of that. And what that says is that in our professional opinion, your financial statements are fairly presented, which means there are no material adjustments that were not posted to your books and records. If we came across something that wasn't reported, we brought it to Carrie's attention. He looked at it and said, yes, you're right, it should have been if you reported it. So what you should have here is a good overall of your financials, okay? Moving beyond that, the next section, I'm just going to point it out as a section, and that's pages 4 through 10. That's called the management's discussion and analysis. So if you were not the type of individual that wanted to go through every single one of these financial statements and look at the numbers, you should be able to read the narrative of pages 4 through 10, and it should, in a narrative way, explain to you where the borough was financially for the year ended December 31, 2015. So it will point out to you the balance of your capital assets, your buildings, your equipment. It will tell you whether you did better or worse than the year before. So it will give you some just summarized comparisons. What we do as your auditors is, we don't tell that story, but to the extent that Carrie writes this management's discussion and analysis, anytime he puts numbers in here, we make sure they agree to the numbers that we audited. Okay, so we do make sure, so if you read this, you can rest assured that it does agree with the detailed financial statements, okay? So if you haven't had a chance to go through this yet, I would encourage you to read pages 4 through 10. When we go on to page 11, now 11 and 12, here's where I'm just going to kind of touch on a couple of the statements. One of the things that's unique to government, so if you haven't walked through a set of government financial statements before, one of the things that a government has to do is present their information 2 ways. The first way is on page 11 and 12. And that says, what that tells you is, if you were running the borough like it was a business, okay, basically what's your net worth? Okay, because if you're running a business, you have buildings, you have equipment, you have vehicles, and you depreciate those, and that's how you determine what you charge for services, things like that, right? So if you're a government, you don't run your government that way, right? You run your government on an annual basis. We need the general fund needs a budget. We need to be sure we cover real costs, not depreciation. So you manage on a month-to-month basis on that basis. That's included here. But in addition to that, we take and pull that and include the other things and say, but if the borough was a business, what's their financial position look like? And that's what page 11 does. So when you look at page 11, if you go down to the net position section, this is broken out in 2 columns. Governmental means all of your general, your special revenue, your liquid fuels, your capital money, all things general governmental are in the first column. The second column are your sewer, proprietary types, your refuge and your sewer. Because your refuge and sewer, you specifically charge people and then provide a service. That's the business type activities column. So governmental is like general capital. Business type is refuse and sewer. Because your refuse and sewer funds do run like businesses. You know, in order for you to charge people to provide sewer, you have to take into consideration things like the depreciation on the assets, because you have to recoup that in order to maintain the system. So those work a little different. That's why there's two columns. But if you look at the net position down at the bottom, okay, so governmental, you've got a net position of $9 million. Again, that's equity. That's not cash in the bank. That's if you count all your assets minus your debt. You've got bonds outstanding. So all of that plus the cash, plus the liabilities, plus your net worth, if you will, so your retained earnings if you're a business is $9 million for your governmentals. For your business type, it's the next column over about 1.5 million in equity. All right. So that's what the story that this statement's telling. Okay. The other thing, not to confuse you too much, but there was a new standard this year. If you look under total liabilities, the first line up from that, it says net pension liability. As you know, you have a defined benefit plan for your police pension fund. There was a brand new accounting rule this year that said, now you fund your pension as your MMO directs you to, right? And you fund your pension such that you hope that the combination of the investments and the benefits paid out will cover that. But there's always going to be a plus or a minus, right? Because investment activity alone can make your liability greater or lower. So you're funding the way you should, but you do have for your police pension a net pension liability of almost $1.9 million as of December 31, 2015. Again, that's not a bill you got to pay, okay? But it does recognize that you're not 100% funded on that bill. Okay? All right. Next page, I promise I'm not going to go page to page. Next page, hopefully this is helping you out a little bit. The next page is designed, again, on a big picture. Okay, this is not your general fund budget page, it's big picture of the whole borough. This is designed to answer the question, if a taxpayer is asking, you know, what are we paying for, right? Because we know you're a government and you get money from the state to help pay for roads, and you get money to help pay for pensions, and don't you get money from the federal, and does the county give you money, and aren't you able to charge for permits or fines? Why doesn't that pay everything? What's left? So when you start here on the first column, and you see it's labeled expenses, so to run your government, if you were running the borough like a business, it would cost you about $8.6 million. I'm under expenses, total governmental activities, about $8.6 million. You bring in some specific fines, permit fees, things like that. You bring in 1.7 to help offset some of that. You've got some grants, operating grants of $430,000, helps offset that. You had some capital grants this year from the county, $968,000, helped offset those expenses. And when you subtracted all of those from the 8.6, you had about $5.5 million, and that's the burden the residents had to bear. Okay, so that's what's left, and it's by category. Most for you, as in most local governments, public safety is your biggest expense, right? That's your the biggest thing that you're covering, you know, taxes and things of that nature. That's what that's designed to show. Okay, after that, now we'll get into something that's a little more familiar to you. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to go ahead to page 17. Page 17 is just your budget for your general fund. Now, this should look very similar to what you would have seen in December at the end of the year, how your general fund budget did. So this shows you that your revenue budget was at that $6.6 million. There's two columns there, original and final. That's there because in the event that you modify your budget, you didn't during the year. Your final budget was $6.6 million. You actually brought in $6.9 million. So you had a $319,000 favorable variance. Some of that was from tax revenues being greater than anticipated, and some of it was those intergovernmental revenues, some of those county grants that came in were in there as well. Now on the expenditure side, you budgeted $6.9 million. You spent $6.8 million. So out of a $6.9 million budget, you came in with it favorable, about $75,000. Carrie probably wants to take credit for that. So.
Not this year, next year.
So that was a favorable variance. You did refund, when you get under that other financing sources, you'll see big numbers there, the 6.3 million. As you know, in 2015, you refinanced some of your debt. That saved you about $270,000, so that was a good move to refinance. The market's really good right now and has been for refinancing. So at the end of the day, your general fund ended up with $43,000 less in fund balance than you started the year with. So out of a $6.6 million budget, that's cutting it pretty close. And to us as auditors, kind of demonstrates that there's budgetary control, okay? Because putting a budget in place, as you know, you go through a lot of effort at the beginning of the year, or at the end of the year, for next year's budget. There's always a lot of talk about it, there's lots of hearings about it, but then you trust management to manage that budget. Okay? Once you do it, the budget's a guide. The real story is where you spend it in the actual way. So where does that mean you ended up for the year? If you can come backwards for a second to page 13, we talked about the general fund. That's the biggest fund, right, of the borough. So the general fund, this is your balance sheet. So December 31, if you look at your fund balance section, this is really what you had available to go into the next year. Page 13, sorry, I went backwards. Yeah, so in the general fund, you ended the year with the fund balance, total fund balances of about $4.1 million. Get them in that first column. Your capital projects fund, you had about $124,000 there. And then you had some other small funds that you set funds aside for special reasons. Liquid fuels is one. You've got the log house fund.
Any cannon money around?
Yeah, all that's in those little funds. So you've got all these other little ones that, in all total, there's a schedule in the back, we won't go through that, of about $342,000. But most of what you manage in your general fund, okay? As opposed to what some governments do, which is they don't keep all that in the general fund, they set up like a capital reserve, to manage long-term, so they transfer from the operating to the capital. But you're managing your short and long-term resources in your general fund. That's what that ordinance says, okay? All right, so that's kind of touching on that. I'll point out for you just by way of demonstrating page 19, the refuse and the sewer, we can kind of look at those together. They're broken out separately. So your refuse fund on page 19, about broke even. So you were able to charge sufficient to have trash pickup, and of course you contract that out. So it's not like you have assets, you don't have trash trucks and that sort of thing. So you're covering refuse. Sewer fund has a little bit more going on. Your sewer fund, again, it collected about $1.2 million, paid out a little bit more than that, and you had a decrease of $45,000 for the year for the sewer fund. But still, the sewer fund has an equity position of about $946,000, so you should be in pretty good shape there as well. One thing I didn't touch on is in those earlier statements. As you know, you have the water authority. You created it. You formed the water authority, so you, in essence, you guarantee their debt. So in those front statements, I didn't go through them, but that the water authority is included in here. It's included on those first two pages. If you just want for reference points, pages 11 and 12. There's a column at the very end, the very edge of page 11 and page 12, there's a column called component unit. That's the water authority. Okay, that's the water authority. So if you want to know their financial condition, it's in that column. That's the balances. And then page 12, the last column over, that is the water authority activities. Okay. So, beyond the financial statements are your footnotes. I'm not going to go through those. They start on page 23. A lot of the information that's in the footnotes is just additional information to support what's in the financial statements. For example, there's debt in your financial statements. The footnotes give you the details of that debt and what's outstanding for your bonds. The one thing that I would point out for you beyond the footnotes, on page 53, required supplementary information. I referenced your police pension fund. On page 53, you can see, remember I pointed out that $1.9 million liability, the borough's net pension liability. You can see from 2014 to 2015, your net pension liability went up from $1,043,000 to $1,889,000. But we know at December 31st, the market was not good. So that's some temporary, okay? So your pension plan was less funded at the end of 15 than it was 14, but a pension plan is going to do that. Okay, it's going to vary over time. I can also tell you, in comparing, because we work with about 50 municipal governments in Pennsylvania, and I can tell you that your pension plan is in very good shape. Compared to a lot of other municipalities, you're fine. Okay, so I mean, that could be a little concerning. Beyond that, the next thing I would point out to you is on page 59. So because you're a government, okay, one of the things that we do as your auditors is, so we're independent CPAs and we can conduct an audit of a business or, in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. And any auditor doing an audit would have to do that. But if you're auditing a government, there are another set of standards that a CPA has to have to be able to report in accordance with generally accepted government auditing standards, which means that as your auditors, because you're a government, we have to not only just test the numbers, but we have to make sure you have internal controls and we have to report on that. And we also have to make sure that you're in compliance with laws and regulations, and we do that. So it's another level that we do, and that's what this report says. So as a result of that report, we do have some recommendations in here. I'm not here tonight to go through that. I would encourage you to read through that. If you have any questions, reach out to Carrie or to us, and we have to go in more detail with you. In addition to this report, we also audited separately both of your pension plans, and we've completed those reports. We also did an audit of your tax collector. This was the second year of auditing your tax collector. The first year we did the audit, you probably are aware there were some issues with that first year. The second year, we're almost done with the second year. It was better this year. So there were some good recommendations that came out of that first audit, and they were implemented and with those. So with that, we'd like to thank, of course, Carrie and Stephen for their support in getting through the audit. They're also this is also filed with the state. There's one DCD that is filed as well. With that, any questions? I'm happy to take any. I know that's a lot to take. I'm sorry, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Well, the one is, I'll speak to what Tricia was saying. Here's how I'm reading. Is money that's acquired by donations, is it separated out or is it absorbed into the general fund? Is it required to be separated out if it's like by donations, like for a specific purpose, or is it as far as auditing, or is it absorbed?
If it's for a specific purpose, it has to be in a separate fund. Okay. So it is separate. If you look on page 57, you have separate funds for parking, for highway aid, for the log house maintenance fund, and for the capital reserve fund. So if someone gives a contribution to the borough and says, this has to be used for the log house, this has to be used for the park, it has to go in a fund for that purpose. It does not go into the general fund.
And is this in every audit we've received?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's $30,000. So that's great.
Okay.
All right. Then I had another question as far as your at the end of the year findings, 61 and all those. I see you have the findings and then you have recommendations.
Right.
How like serious are these findings and recommendations as far as for the next year and next year? Are these things that's like, look, you really got to take care of this, or yeah, it's kind of a general suggestion?
These are.
They're from 07 and 08.
Oh, is that what that means?
These are things that you want to take care of and that Carrie is already looking to take.
I can say that of all of them in here, I've already started with
Okay.
It's dwindled down. There used to be a lot that rolled over every single year.
Exactly, and they are getting better. Sometimes even though we are independent and can tell you this really needs to be fixed. Sometimes it takes one of them to fix it.
Yeah, I understand.
But yeah, no, that's a good question. That's a good question. I know Carrie has paid a lot of attention to that. And as he's gone through and getting oriented and is learning himself, and you have a brand new system, some of these are going to be rectified because you have a new accounting system. Okay, so.
And I can worry the details if you want, you know exactly what I'm doing.
Might not be a bad idea, okay, here's a suggestion. As council members, what you might want to do is ask for Carrie to provide you with his response to those. You know, here's what we're doing. Just kind of give you communication, and that way you'll be able to match them up. Okay, that's what I'm. Anything else?
Beth?
I don't have a question of the audit, but I noticed that one of the things that we found was
This dam is the public safety issue. This dam is located just upstream on the East Branch Brandywine, just upstream of the 30 bypass, right on the west side of Struble Trail. It appears to be a bucolic, lovely recreational setting, which hides an absolutely enormous public safety hazard. These, what are called low-head dams, because they're low and the water flows over them all the time, and they hide the danger that actually occurs at the toe of the dam. When that water comes over the dam, it looks very nice and smooth. It's very misleading. As it gets to the toe of the dam, it begins a washing machine effect and will pull, and does pull, people under into a current that they cannot escape from, regardless of how strong, how old, or how large they are. We have had in Chester County drowning on a similar dam just downstream of this dam on the Brandywine Creek in 2009. Officer Bonnie, unfortunately, has reported to us that his colleague, fortunately, was able to assist and help avoid 2 near drownings at this dam in recent years. And across the United States, just since the beginning of May, there have been over 12 drownings at these kinds of dams. They're very dangerous because it looks like a beautiful place to be and to wade and to play and to recreate, but in fact, they're very dangerous if you fall off that dam. And it's only about 5 feet, so it doesn't look like it would be a bad fall. It's not the fall, it's the current that pulls you under and drowns you because you can't get out. So they're called drowning machines. So we have tried to communicate to those who have been using this location about the dangers. We've had signs up for a few years. We've also, with the help of the Homeowners Association, been able to close off physical access to both sides of the dam to the greatest extent that physical barriers can keep people away from someplace they truly want to be. They will still be creative and find a way around whatever barrier we put up. So it is still a constant struggle to keep people out of harm's way, keep them from getting into the dam and finding their way into a harmful situation. Our rangers continue to work that problem from the Struble Trail end, and Officer Bonnie and the Fish and Boat Commission continue to work that issue from the west side. The dam, in order to protect the public safety and avoid any further risk of drowning at this dam, the dam does need to be removed. There are some environmental benefits to removing the dam. However, our strongest concern here is public safety. But the environmental effects of removing the dam are that it will return the Brandywine Creek and Ledwidge Run, which is a tributary that confluences with Brandywine Creek, right upstream of the dam. It will allow those 2 stream channels to recover back to a much more natural flow and habitat condition. And with regard to the Kardon Park lakes, one of course, our concerns was whether the removal of the dam would actually cause any further impact to the lakes. And we had a number of investigations done to get us the information that we needed to reach any conclusion, and the conclusion is that removal of the dam would not cause any further, let me rephrase that. You can never say absolutely anything in nature. It will have negligible impact, negative impact on the lakes. There is potential that it actually could help improve the lakes, although there's, I would use the word may there. We do not have the robust science that might be needed to really project long-term future of your lakes and all of the other impacts and sources of pollutants and water that go into your lakes. But predominantly what's happening now is the river is only overflowing into those lakes under high flow conditions when it's bringing with it the sediment and nutrient loads that are actually causing the water quality problems in the lakes. So by removing the dam, it will decrease the frequency even further of when those loads would be available to reach far enough through that spillway to get to the lakes to add the pollutants into the lake system. So the public safety concern is our most serious reason, most significant reason for pursuing the removal of the dam. The resources would enjoy some environmental benefit in the streams themselves, and based on our information from those that we have looked into this, would not cause any, it would cause, and we don't think it's going to cause any more negative impact to the lakes, and in fact might help reduce the flows. So, wanted to present the information to you, be here, answer questions, begin the dialogue. We're certainly open to hearing what you have to say. I was very interested, of course, in Sarah's information. She has a lot of detail. Sarah, I'm hoping maybe you'll share your notes with me.
Sure.
But we look forward to taking any information, any questions, any interests, relaying those back, as I say, to the design team and putting them into the process as we go through the design, permitting, and review process over the next year. Yes,
Of course, in this, we have a problem with flooding.
yes?
So that would be my first question. Have you checked into how that will affect in case of the high water levels?
It would have a negligible, again, you can never say anything absolute about anything related to nature or natural water source circumstances. It would have a negligible impact on flooding. The dam that is there right now is not a flood control dam. It is not doing anything to absorb flood waters coming down the stream. The dam is already filled with sediment, so it has no room behind it for any water storage. So it would not create any additional flood control, or it would not create any loss of flood control because it's not serving any now. By removing the dam, the stream, the level of the water of the stream on a normal day, if you will actually be down a few feet lower than it is now, and therefore a storm today with the water level at the dam height that might raise it 2 feet above the dam will then be down here raising it 2 feet. So in some reaches of the stream, it will actually contain the floodwaters more within the stream itself. Other questions?
The public safety is definitely something that we're the most concerned with too, above anything else, historical or whatever. So I appreciate you. I agree that I've seen the barricades go up. I think that keeps people from parking their cars there. I don't really see how it keeps anybody from going into that water. If this is all true, then I think the dam is something I would support the removal of.
I've been running this trouble for years, and I've seen that fence get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the pathways of desire go right around. So it's good. I think it's, any idea on timing?
Our anticipated schedule right now, the design is just now beginning. It'll have to go through, and it seems a bit counterintuitive to talk about designing something that's being demolished. But they do have to put design specifications together on how to safely and appropriately demolish it. Then it will have to go through regulatory review process for the permits with the state and everything. And our anticipated removal, of the project removal would be next year, 2017. I'm not going to try and commit to a particular month or even season at this point, but our intent and goal is to have the dam down next year.
Okay. Is this going to impact our water authority?
It should not. The water authority intake is downstream of the state. The water authority's intake is just downstream of Route 30, and then their backup is a well, which would not be affected. But the intake downstream, when the demolition were to occur, I will personally make sure that the design team has put into the specs that there is probably at least 48 hours, if not more, notice given to the authority that the demolition is when it's going to start, so that they can pre-plan their water production to fill their tanks, so they can turn off their intake while the demolition is happening, so that if any debris or sediments are coming downstream, they won't inadvertently suck those into their intake. So we'll do that coordination with them, make sure that there's no impact there.
All right, thank you.
So you said that the water level is going to be affected a little bit. Now, so I have questions about I know there was talk about the shad, and will that affect that, if that project ever comes to fruition? And then also, as far as the water level, I mean, if you just look right outside our window here, it's really low already. So is that going to drop even more?
No. No, if I can try and explain a little better what I was trying to say. First, to your question about the shad, there have been interest and efforts and initiatives undertaken, largely led by Brandywine Conservancy, as you mentioned, in earlier years, to begin a process of trying to remove these abandoned dams in order to allow for more effective fish migration up through the system. That is an environmental benefit that would have a strong benefit for keeping the habitat into a more naturalized condition and bringing some of those species back into the area that have been precluded because of these dams. They can't cross. So there are some benefits there. That was not our intent with this particular dam, and in order for the shad to be able to benefit coming all the way upstream from Delaware, the other dams would have to be removed. However, local species will be able to migrate through the stream system now where they couldn't before. So it will, for some other species, and I'm not a biologist, so I can't speak well to which ones, but for other fish that are in this area, it will allow for more naturalized habitat and movement of those species. To your question about the water level, I was speaking specifically at the dam itself. That as the water comes over the top of that dam, the dam's here and the water's coming over it on a typical day now, here. When that dam is removed, that water is going to be down at the channel to look much more like what's right out here. It'll be a naturalized channel. But right now, it's actually elevated about 5 feet up. So it will only lower there. By the time it gets 10, 20 feet past where the dam is physically located, the channel is at its natural bed based on underlying bedrock, underlying substrate, much like this. So that decline in water level would just be literally at the location of the dam.
And then all the sediment is going to be released from that? Are you going to be, is that part of the design process that you're going to remove it? Because otherwise it's just going to go right downstream.
It will just go right downstream. Yeah. However, and this is something that I can't speak specifically to, but I can speak generally to, because we'll have to see how the design process plays out and how the regulators ask for that particular component to be handled. But I've heard both done in these kinds of dam removals. I've heard situations where they have actually removed some of those sediments in advance and used them for other beneficial uses elsewhere. I've also heard where they remove the dam and then allow nature to take its course and over a period of time allow the stream to naturally cut its way back down through those sediments and find its natural channel again. It could be a combination of the two.
Okay, because we've had a lot of sediment buildup just right here, right by the...
And the state regulators, the design team, the Fish and Boat Commission, our agency, were all have very heightened awareness about sediment issues in Brandywine anyway, and other streets. And that certainly will be taken into account. But given the dynamics of how these systems work as they remove the dams, there are certain circumstances where the sediments are allowed to remain and be removed by natural flows. So it'll be given due consideration.
Okay. And then I think in your letter, I think it's a typo, where you had the Downing Ridge Dam was originally built in 1917. That was
The one that's there now was built in 1917.
1716?
The first one was built in 1716.
Uh-huh.
This is
Yeah.
Jan Bauer's personal, no, it's not a typo.
Not a typo.
The dam that is there now
Uh-huh.
is not the original dam. It's a replacement dam. The dam that's there now was built in 1917. The original dam, my understanding, it was a rock dam. If you look at the dam now, just downstream of the dam, there's a lot of rock out in the stream. I believe that's the remnant of the previous dam. But it was at about the same location, but that original dam in 1716 no longer exists. It was replaced in 1917 by the one that's there now. It's a poured concrete dam.
So, I was just thinking about the design thing, the whole washing machine thing. I mean, as far as the cost you're going to do is going to be obviously a lot. Has the county ever looked at putting in sort of maybe a wedge type of thing so the water comes over and doesn't come straight down and make a washing machine, but rather is it easier or more cost effective to put in a more like make the dam instead of straight up and down, but give it a slope so that the water can go over, cascade over naturally and not create that?
Interesting that you'd ask that question. It sounds like someone who has either knows a little bit about this or else has got a good process of thinking. That is an option that sometimes is looked at in certain circumstances. We did look at that option, and it was disfavored because of cost, long-term costs. Because not only do you pay to put it in, but now you're also having to pay to maintain the dam and the ramp into perpetuity. In addition, it doesn't provide the environmental benefits that the removal, and it still has hazards. It still has, it now creates a different attractive nuisance for people who now want to walk up and down that ramp, slip on the rock, break their ankle, or whatever. So you can't avoid the public safety issue by trying to alter the dam that's there. To truly address the public safety issue, it needs to be removed.
Okay, so then as far as the effects, you're saying here that you're saying that removal of the dam won't affect the ponds, it won't affect the noise. But are you talking about because of the condition it's in right now?
That's correct.
Because that the mill race should be restored and in order to feed the lakes. That was in the 70s, and I don't know if you're aware of that. I think Sarah spoke to that. But in the 70s, the borough did get a federal grant, and they did put in a silt pond at the top of Kardon Park, right at the beginning, in order to catch the debris that you're talking about, so that it wouldn't go and pollute the ponds, or get into the ponds and cause more suffocation and just large debris and stuff like that. It hasn't been maintained. But, and that is, the ponds are a flood control measure, and it's not only for the Brandywine, but it's not only for here rather, but the Brandywine, because it can accept a lot of water and divert it through, so it can slow down the water in the Brandywine. I have researched that as far as the whole flood control of the ponds and the lakes. So right now they're not functioning, which I'm sure you're aware of, because it hasn't been maintained. And I can personally attest to that. The flooding has increased in the park area, like when it has a bad time, because the water can't go anywhere. So instead it overflows the banks.
Well,
but that's not your issue with the...
It actually, in part it is. It's part of the environmental restoration that comes from removal of the dam, is that you then restore the dynamics within the Brandywine Creek itself, where flooding is happening in the place that's most appropriate for the flooding, which is the Brandywine floodplain, as opposed to routing those flood flows over through a recreational park resource and actually spreading flooding into an area that naturally is not part of its floodplain.
Well,
and by the way, there's also that mill race goes along a number of private properties that are impacted by any flood flows that do get carried over there. So it's not, there are property owners in between the lakes and the river that get impacted. high flood flows,
I'm
encouraging us.
I don't recall that anybody flooded
I,
there, but.
I'm not saying that anyone has had damage, but it does flood on private properties.
So my concern is that this flood control measures that were put in federal funds in the 70s that not only help the flood control in the borough, but also do maintain these lakes. If you cut that off, this is already silted up and not functioning, in other words, it's not functioning. If the dam is gone, let me ask this, here's the way to ask a question. If the mill race is restored, so that the flow of water is coming back to the lakes, it is taking care of the algae, it is all restored, and it's functioning again, as it always has been. If that is restored and the dam is removed, will water still come into the mill race, or is it just going to seal back up again? Do you know?
Regardless of whether you have the dam in place or removed, the mill race will continue to fill up.
Sure.
The bed load is very high coming from Ludwig's Run and from the Brandywine. A lot of those coming from Ludwig's Run, it's coming down the steep slope. So regardless of whether the dam remains there or is removed, that mill race is going to continue to fill with sediment. It's going to be an ongoing battle, which is why I suspect the borough didn't take on maintaining that mill race, and no one would have
Actually, no, that's
taken
not the
it on.
reason, but we won't go there.
Well, at any rate, in our view, it is, to say it's not cost effective is such a total understatement, because literally every storm puts more sediment into that mill race. It's an impossible thing to keep that mill race clean.
My question is,
I'm sorry.
if the mill race is cleaned out, will the water, and the dam is removed, will water go into the mill race, or is the water
Yes.
going to dependent upon the
There
dam?
will, on occasion, water will still, but only under high flood flow conditions where there is enough water coming down the Brandywine to get up high enough in the banks to overtop what's left of the mill race. Similar answer to the current condition where the dam is in place. The only time the water gets up high enough to get into the mill race is under high flood flows. It would still,
Because of the sediment, right, I understand.
yes.
Okay, so
And even so, if I may, it's still, regardless of the amount of sediment in the mill race, it's still bringing you the pollutants from the Brandywine into your lake system. And I was wondering where the first lake came from, or the upper lake came from. That's interesting to know that. But, and it's not my understanding that any of those modifications have any flood control benefit. They would have been drainage benefits, but not flood control benefits. Conveyance of some flows, but not flood control.
Yeah, I don't know.
It could be a matter of semantics and definition.
That's, an old reference and stuff, we talked about flood control. So my last question is, with the removal of the dam, now there is also that concrete culvert, I guess you call it, I don't know what you call it actually. You have the dam, and then you have that concrete thing that leads into the mill race. It used to have a sluice gate. Is that part of this that will also be removed?
Again, that I would yield to, we'll see what works out with the design, but it would be my expectation that that head wall of the mill race would come down as well, because if it doesn't come down with the dam, it will eventually fail and fall. And it also provides quite a safety hazard in itself, just because of its height and its condition. It is a deteriorating condition. Any questions? If you have any other questions, my number is on the letterhead. Please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, we'll keep you posted along the way as key steps.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, before you end,
We're going to move on.
I just want to admit one thing. Before the barriers went up,
You had your chance to talk to citizens. Thank you.
I'm sorry, may I indulge?
We're moving on.
I'm sorry, I forgot to ask if Officer Bonnie would like to make any comments on behalf of the HOA.
Just a couple comments, take me about a minute.
Okay.
And he's true to his word, man. Quick.
I'm Officer Bonnie, I'm State Conservation Police Officer, Mission Road Commission. I'm also a homeowner over here in Downing Ridge, who is part owner of this dam. I've done some research on these dams. The average payout for someone, when someone dies at one of these dams, the average payout, $10 to $35 million. We don't have that kind of money. Even if we did, we wouldn't want to spend it. The other thing I want to mention very quickly is the drownings down here in Lenape at the dam in 2009. I investigated that. I was the lead investigator. Those 2 men drowned at that dam were in kayaks. The hydraulics were so strong it pulled the kayaks down. Took them out of the kayaks. Even stripped a life jacket off one of the gentlemen. That's how strong the hydraulics get at these dams. And we've had 1 near miss, as Executive Director Bowers has mentioned, at this dam. And I can tell you we're living on borrowed time. I know the mill race is important to the borough. I know this lady back here and a lot of people. It doesn't receive water now unless there's a heavy rain event, a large rain event or flood. That's the only time it gets water from this creek. This dam needs to go. I can't afford the liability. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
I do have one more question for Ms. Bowers, if you don't mind. And my question is, if, let's say the mill race is, everybody does want to maintain it in order to maintain the lakes, is there an alternate way besides a dam to divert water into the mill race that's effective without causing a hazard?
You're not recording, are you? Do I need to speak at the mic, or can I speak here? You can hear me, okay, there's no recording going on from that mic, right? Okay. We investigated, when we first started looking at options for the dam, we initially began by looking at what would be options for continuing some level of diversion. And the options, and we have a very good engineering firm who's very adept at these things and very creative. And the long story short, there is no practical alternative that would provide for continued diversion of water in the volume necessary for the amount of time necessary to have any beneficial effect on the lakes. To replace what's currently happening, you really don't want to do anyway because you're just bringing the dirty water over. But to do it as a continuous, sustained flow of water, there's really no practical way to do that right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Need action on this. All right. Next order of business, bonds contract.
Yeah, well, Jack is here this evening. This kind of goes hand in hand with the dam. One of the council members that I can't take the algae anymore. So we've been working on this. You can't just buy the herbicides and throw in there anymore. I mean, there's fish, there's testing, there's permits, there's licenses required. So he did get this contract. Jack worked on this to get this contract. It's a 2-year contract, and I think the amount is about $33,000, $33,500. It's a 2-year contract to remove the algae, and it's not just algae, it's duckweed and a lot of different kind of invasive growth in the ponds. Jack has recently went out and bought an aeration system for First Lake. We're trying it now. It started, I think, yesterday or the day before. They had to run it 2 hours, then 4 hours, then it could be run constantly because of the oxygenation in the fish. They didn't want to kill the fish. They say too much oxygen will kill the fish. So it's something we're trying. I'd love to get the fountains back in there. We've looked at it. I've had a long conversation with Jan. Any water that does get into the mill race, it's washed out on the bank and drops back into the Brandy line about 60 yards down. So all that would need to be rebuilt. I don't see the borough doing that. It's not in the borough, it's not on borough property. So I think this is the next best scenario, is to come up with a treatment, a chemical treatment plan and aeration that will clean the ponds up of the green tin. I think it's the first step. We did not budget this money. I don't know how you want to how you want to look at this or how you want to go at it. It's not something we budgeted. Maybe we start in January. We let Jack use the aeration system we purchased and see how that does. But that's the next step in cleaning up the ponds. So, I don't know, something we can budget later. It's something that if you direct us, we can find the money and move money to purchase the contract. It's up to you guys what you want to do, but I hope to get the fountain in by fall test, but we'll see how that goes. On First Lake, this is for all ponds, so, I mean, just so you're aware of it, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but it looks like a decent proposal, and I think Jack would agree that the gentleman that submitted it thinks he can do a pretty good cleanup on it. So,
I appreciate that. It's definitely a step in the right direction. In talking with the citizenry, this is something everybody in town is tired of looking at. It's awful. Zika virus hasn't hit the northern states yet. If it's in Miami, maybe, you know, but everybody seems confident it's coming, you know, and it definitely is. As it is now, it's a breeding ground for mosquitoes. When I was a young boy, I remember there was a paddle boat concession on First Lake, and you could pay, you know, $2 and ride around for a half hour on a paddle boat. You know, I mean, it was a real asset to the town, and right now it's just there. And it's something, you know, we have the Main Street has the "Come Grow With Us" logo and has a picture of the ponds, but it's nothing you really want to be proud of right now. And this contract that I'm looking at here, it starts January 1st, so of 2017, I don't see it an issue with our current budget. It's something I think that I would recommend that we add it to our next year's budget and get this stuff cleaned up. It's an embarrassment.
Is that a motion, or do you need a motion?
I don't think we need a motion. I mean, unless we're directed to find this money and fulfill this contract now, I don't know if Jack can tell me if it was a time frame issue.
Yeah, there is a time frame issue.
Start in January.
Along with this company, there's permitting that's involved, probably through Fish and Game, DEP. So it wouldn't happen, even if you approved it today, it would not happen tomorrow. There's a few other processes that go along with that, and that's aeration, which we've begun. The gentleman I spent probably 2.5 hours with, just in First Lake, he advised that there's one pond there visually, but there's 2 ponds due to the water temperature differences between the deeper end, which he estimated probably be about 50 degrees, and the upper water level, which would probably be about 80. So what we did under his recommendation was the first step of the process before they would even start would be to install the aerators, which we did. Now, he didn't give a time frame on how long that has to happen. The other thing you have to do is you have to watch how quickly you kill the algae, because that will also present yourself for fish kill. So, like I said, I wouldn't see this happening before 2017.
So you suggest we approve it tonight so that you can get going on it, or?
No, we've already started the process by putting the aeration system. But, I mean, we could probably sign the contract with him. I didn't read through when the funds are due to them, but I don't think they were going to start until January, only because of the permitting process. So Pennsylvania is the hardest state to get permits to do any type of water quality issues.
So we wouldn't even be able to do anything until we
could
look at our budget for next
approve
year.
that. We could approve this, but you'd have to make sure that it's funded in your budget for 2017. I think it would be a start.
If you want to do that, I mean, we can definitely budget the money, but now if you approve a contract now, we need cash. So you would have to direct us, myself, Carrie, to make sure that this is funded with our reserve fund. And I don't like to do that.
But they were planning on starting in January anyway.
Correct. But, I mean, that may be because of the timing on permits, I'm not sure. So, Why don't you let us go back, talk to them, and see what money they need for the permitting and the licenses, so, and we'll report back on September 7th.
That'll be, so the permitting stuff would be in addition to the contract price?
No, I think it's all included, but I don't know why they picked January, if they figured it would take 5 months, 4 months to get the permits. I don't know why, so I guess we'll have to talk with them a little more and find out how much money they need and when. And we'll report back.
The gentleman did say the permitting will probably take 3 to 4 months. And also the mosquito treatment is included in the contract, as are the invasive weeds, both along the banks, within the water, so there's a whole host of items.
Did you look into the vacuuming, that video that was?
Yeah, we saw the video, and I told Jack, get the vac on, and we'll just suck the algae off, and it doesn't work that way. The gentleman said if it was algae, that would be one thing, but what you're dealing with will clog any pump up. You try to-
Yeah, there's actually 4 different types of plant right there. The duckweed, there's 2 different types of algae, and there's something else. And he said then you get into the process of once you remove it from the pond, you have to dispose of it. So he said that could be a permanent issue.
I mean, I think, council, this is something that has been managed for many years, just through Public Works, where they would keep the mill race clear. And if you remember the park, if you've gone to Pooh Bridge or anything like that, there's always been water flowing, you don't have an algae problem. It all goes back to the mill race not being maintained. It really started around 2009, and that's when everything started to go downhill. So,
And you mean just this portion of the mill race?
the mill race from the dam all the way through. The borough used to maintain the entire length of the mill race, from the dam all the way through the borough. The borough has a special machine that will take all the sand out from underneath the Millwood Road. I believe a new machine bought in 2009, but then the decision was made it was stopped. It was going to be cleared out, and then it was stopped for whatever reason. So the mill race has not been cleared out, but the borough has typically taken care of it. I have talked with DEP, and the borough has always had permission to go into the mill race. I've talked with parks workers and stuff like that. They used to do that with a little, I don't know what you call it, a Tonka truck thing. And they go through and they clear the mill race, and then they suck it out from underneath the Norwood Road, all that sedimentation. It would go down the mill race through the park, and it would be kept clear. And there was always a current. And when I was here and saw the current, it had already been still building up. It wasn't even freshly done. But yes, my kids and I used to play poo sticks, and neighbors would say they used to play, poo sticks? That's where you stand on one side of the bridge from Winnie the Pooh, and you drop your stick on one side, and everybody drops a stick, and you wait to see whose stick floats under the bridge first. That's poo stick. You can't do that now. There's absolutely no current. There's nothing. It is stagnant. Mosquitoes are a problem. There are certainly natural solutions. I don't know if you know about the whole garlic, the high concentrated garlic I use in my backyard. It's great. There's other things as far as the water that are natural solutions, which I think you knew about, but they work great too. I use them in the pond. They're absolutely safe for fish. But anyways, there are solutions that are not going to cost us a lot of money. We don't have to go outside. We have managed for many, many years. The ponds and the mill race have been there for decades. And this has never been a problem. The only time it's become a problem is since the mill race has stopped, the borough has stopped maintaining it. My suggestion, very strong suggestion, adamant, is that just clear the mill race. See if that doesn't work. That's something we can do in-house with our people without having all kinds of permit requirements, and just see if it doesn't work. And if you're thinking about, well, hey, that can impact the whole plans for Kardon Park project and all that kind of stuff, it helps. It helps anybody. It helps the developer, it helps the people, it helps the borough. There you go.
Thank you.
I would just like to comment, if we can get the people that actually own the mill race, because we don't, and if you can get DEP to give us a permit, we'll be happy to put a track machine in there tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. So everyone's opinion on what can be done and what can't be done, what should be done. Public Works just can't go into 2 other municipalities on property they don't own with a bulldozer and start cleaning, dredging the ponds. They don't get permits for that anymore. That's why it stopped. It has nothing to do with development. So-
We're investigating them to try to get a permit. They might try to, you know, these guys are gonna have to get
I
permits.
will
Why
drive
don't we
the
get
track
a permit?
machine first.
Huh?
I have no problem.
I'd like to
So,
keep it on
one more.
on the front burner, and hopefully
Staying on topic.
January.
What we're gonna do with this contract is Steve and Jack, you'll go back to the company and ask them for kind of a guideline on what they want with the permits, what type of commitment we need to make.
Put it on the next agenda.
Thank you.
All right, ordinance 2016-04. Jeff?
Okay. This is an ordinance amending, this is for advertising intent to adopt an ordinance that would be amending chapter 203 of the parks and playgrounds. And we would be prohibiting the use of tobacco and all the tobacco products in the borough parks, playgrounds, and trails by designating areas as tobacco-free in support of the Pennsylvania Department of Health Young Lungs at Play program.
Second.
I'm trying to move to advertise and adopt with intent to adopt.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
All right, I will speak a little bit about it. This, months ago, Councilor Dang was obsessed with smoking in the park. So Parks and Rec kind of slowly thought about it, and really a lot of this program started with the new appointee, Ashley Orr, who works for the health department, and she was able to really reach out to Young Lungs at Play, which is an already established organization that helps with fact sheets and information about secondhand smoke in playgrounds, and they attempt to get it out of the parks. So we're kind of partnering with Young Lungs at Play. If we adopt this, they will be providing us with some signage. You can see how the ordinance is going to work. I think Millie, you helped also to set this up. So, yeah, this is to get tobacco. So this will be all cigarettes and including electronic cigarettes and like.
Start down your end. Any questions?
Yeah, I do have questions. One is, this is more than, this is going beyond Young Lungs at Play. This is just saying any park. I can definitely see the value in saying not in any playground, any borough-owned playground. But saying you can't smoke in, or even have you can't even chew your stuff, or have an electronic cigarette in a park or on a trail or a recreational field. People come and watch baseball and softball. They might want to have their electronic cigarette. But I would say a playground, yeah, definitely. They shouldn't have that. But I mean, I feel like it. I'm not a smoker, but I just feel that people kind of, if they're outside, they should be able to go ahead and smoke if they want. It's not a banned substance. It's not like alcohol. So if they wanted to smoke, I would think they can. But I think for young ones to play, absolutely. Say no smoking or any tobacco products or anything like that in the playground. I could 100% support that. I can't really support it saying in any borough public park or trail or recreational field, and that they're all tobacco free. I think that's to me it seems a little unreasonable, because you're talking it's outside the purview of Young Lungs at Play. Now you're talking about everybody's lungs. So and I think that I think there's a balance. So I can support it as far as in playground, absolutely. But can't just an overall global ban of all smoking products everywhere in borough property.
What would you consider the basketball courts, a playground? What's your definition of playground?
No, that's a good question. They are a facility. They're a recreational facility.
Okay. What's your definition of playground?
Like the all abilities playground, anywhere where the kids are encouraged to play with the, so you would say the skate park, I guess you'd say
park, I would say kids are encouraged to play in the basketball facility. That could be considered a playground.
You say the softball thing then. So people watching the game can't even chew tobacco. Right. Correct. I think that kind of impacts the enjoyment of the people watching the games. You know, if they like to have their electronic cigarette or something like that, and it's not harmful. Now, if you want to, I'm okay with saying no cigarettes. Cigarettes are, they do impact the person next to them. Electronic cigarettes, they don't.
The full data has not been fully figured out yet because they're too new, but the new studies are showing every day, so I can't point to anything. But
I could see smoking in any of the recreational facilities
But
or playgrounds. But again, not in all the trails and all the, everywhere, borough parks and trails and recreational fields. And if you want to say tobacco is free, and what about when we try to?
Your issue though with Gallagher?
No, that's not legality. I'm thinking about everybody who does come to our events, that they do smoke, or maybe we should have a smoking area instead. Instead of saying everything is just banned, maybe we should make a smoking area. Just think about it. You have the Jam Fest, you have Good Neighbor Day, you have all those people are walking around, they're smoking, they have not trying cigarettes. We're going to give them all tickets. So instead, why not?
read further into the.
Someone's missed it. What
Section
did it say?
3 is probably
What
what
did I
you
miss?
read.
I didn't read enforcement.
I must have missed it. Where is it?
Second page says section 3. Enforcement.
We need to put that in. Then, so it's really just, this is really just a.
Education. It's an encouragement and education.
Well, then why don't you just say you want to have a space where you have no smoking signs? And, I'm sorry, I don't mean to have to be snarky, I didn't mean to be snarky at all. Okay, well, I still, think that we should have no smoking area, or smoking areas. Instead of saying no smoking here, just designate smoking areas. And, well, what are you going to do during the different public events?
If you have a smoking area, you are encouraging smoking. The point of this ordinance is to discourage smoking. So having a smoking ordinance, or having a smoking area defeats the purpose of the ordinance.
Any questions on it?
No, it's going to change. It's going to change.
I think that an adult, not just a child, but my right to not breathe tobacco, secondhand smoke supersedes somebody else's right. And if they want to smoke, they can just step off the park and smoke. I mean,
Where?
every day, less and less people are smoking than there were the day before. And there seems to be a public trend to discourage people from smoking. The state of Pennsylvania increased the sales tax on cigarettes, $1 a pack this week. And man, if you can smoke, you're making a lot of money if you can afford the cigarettes. And I think we should discourage smoking, especially in parks, not just because of being around children's playgrounds, but there's people there recreating, riding bicycles, jogging, playing games and stuff where their lungs are working at a higher rate, and to be breathing in somebody else's cigarette smoke. And I don't buy it. We're not, the people down there watching the kids play baseball, it's not the same as going down to the Phillies game, which, by the way, you're not allowed to smoke there either. So,
The trend is going this way.
I support this.
Westchester, I believe, did the same thing.
Question to the vote, please.
Oh, sorry.
Call questions, so now we have to vote.
All right, no more discussion? favor? All opposed?
I'm in favor.
I'm gonna oppose, I think that this should be a regular
Carries
thing.
forward.
And I think the expense of the ordinance is unnecessary, we should just.
Moving on. Jefferson Avenue parking update.
We have a few Jefferson Avenue residents. We got a petition, probably our last meeting, and the last thing we discussed as council was that we would do an on-street public permit parking.
Connecticut.
I'm
gonna be there tonight.
Petition, and what they are petitioning is for the residents to use the parking lot on Jefferson Avenue. Not what we really discussed, so I got it, so I put it back on the agenda to see what we want to do with this, because it was not a petition for the ordinance to allow on-street parking for residents only on Jefferson Avenue.
So we're allowing on-street parking for free without the permit?
What we discussed last time, if I may, was giving 2 permits per household and making the entire section of that Jefferson Avenue residential parking. Yes, residential permit parking, and each household receives 2 permits. We weren't discussing the parking lot.
We were discussing the parking lot, because he said we park 33 according to the parking lots. That's what you're trying to do.
I think he said if you had 3 cars, you would have to get a permit.
He said 33 parking spaces. And I went up on top of that hill and there was exactly 33 parking spaces.
On the street, there's
Off the street.
37, 38.
On the, if you talk about on the street itself, that was different from what we was talking about, him and I. Because he's talking about the parking lot. Because I mentioned that there's a company that was trying to buy parking permits for the parking.
Yes. They brought that up. I'm not even sure where that went. I haven't heard about it since, but they brought up the possibility of having their employees purchase the permits
Right.
to park there,
Right.
in that parking lot.
Right, so what I was saying is that the people that live on the lower block of 100, there's 10 houses, about 10 houses there. If you give a parking permit to everybody, 2 per household, they're not gonna be able to park on that street.
On the entire section of Little
If
Jefferson
you have to
Avenue.
have them park on both sides, and you won't be able to get a car or bus, or you won't be able to get a school bus to get past that if you park on both sides of that part of the street. So we brought up the parking lot, which previously the borough had promised the residents to be able to park up there. And then when the guy built the houses there, he took it, somehow it went away.
Well, it was never the borough's. That was always his. The builders owned those parking spaces.
But you, the council, has made it so we could have them.
What, the street parking there?
No,
No,
the
this
7
is part-
stalls were in there before, in the wall.
Those weren't the borough's. They were never the borough's.
No, but you made an agreement with them or something like that, you got.
We can't force them to let you guys use the spot.
Well, they
Well, we
actually
parked up
took
in
it
the parking
away.
lot then.
Yeah, and they also
How-
took it away and put a
Was it
sidewalk
Jack
in there.
for, did you go with Chip to do the parking analysis down there?
No, I did not. No, myself, Chip,
Steve,
and
okay.
assistants were involved here.
Okay. And
Field
how many
out,
spots
field
are
out.
on the street there?
I mean, I had the chart, I didn't bring it with me, but it's probably 34. I think Jack installed 1 handicap space, so,
2. One in and one down the end.
yeah, the one on the end is new, I think.
And one up near the lead garage is new.
There's 2 of them.
So I think there was 34 spaces total.
Okay. So if that's what we, council agreed on last time we met. It was those 34 spots on the street, turning that into residential parking for the house, the home, the people who live on that street right there.
I don't think that was the issue because it was already free for the residents to park there.
But now nobody else can park there, and you can only get 2 permits per house.
If you get 2 permits per
You
house,
never make it.
you'll never make it, is what I'm saying. You wait, there's not enough
We're trying
room
down
to
in
park
there.
20 cars on that part of Jefferson.
Well, there's 34 spots.
On the parking lot.
No, not
Yeah.
including the parking lot.
I think they're talking about the lower end of Jefferson. They want to park in front of their house. They don't want to, they're not talking about the rest of the spaces down towards Brandywine. They're talking about right in front of their houses.
So that's what I'm
Everybody
saying.
down the other end has it.
Everybody's 2 permits per house. They will not be able to park on that street. Because if you park on a lower end, where you only have, where you can park one car, because they put the sidewalk there, because there was parking there. They put sidewalk there. So like I said, if you put 2 cars on each side, a school bus will not be able to go through. Now, on the other end, they still have the outcut for the parking, and then you'll be able to park, you know, in front of your house on that end. But that's still not enough parking.
See, I understand what you're saying, but in the West End, which is where I represent, they have to purchase the permit to park in the parking lot. So what we're trying to do for you is to allow you to have that street parking for free, which is not what we allow on this end.
I don't think I get you, because you say we want to make it, it's free now.
On the other end.
But nobody else will be able to park there except for the
Right, in other
residents.
words,
on
I
that
can't
street.
come down and park in your space now. The space on the street will be your space. I can't park there. You'll get a permit for that space on the street.
But you won't have enough room then, that's where the houses is.
Well,
So I have a question. You're going to only make that street, you was actually going to make people pay to park on just that street?
No,
Downingtown?
no, we were gonna make it residential parking just for the residents from Brandywine up to the stop sign. That entire, the parking there would be residential just for those residents.
But what I'm,
Anybody else that tried to park there could get ticketed or to.
so what I'm saying, anywhere else in Downingtown, you was not going to do that, sir. So why would you do it?
We do it down here on the west end, down on,
Johnsontown, the West End, it's called a residential parking program, and it's by the block. It's not by half the block or 2 houses, it's by the entire block.
so all the residents share that block's parking.
It's a
So
200
we
block,
want to
300
stop the
block.
people that live in the new houses that come and park,
Yes.
Yes,
because
that's
You
exactly
will
what.
not have a permit, just your house is what.
In the garage that would come with customers dropping cars off, they would get a ticket because they couldn't park on the street. It
well,
would only be the residents allowed to park on the street, it wouldn't be outside.
like I said, I'm stick to what I know. And I thought the parking problem was for the people to be able to park in those parking lots on the street,
That's what me and Mayor was
not
talking
on
about.
Main Street.
What council agreed to was to do just the residential parking on the street, only for the residents on that block.
Both things were being discussed, both,
Right.
we
We
were
did.
talking about both things, about as far
I
as the
agree.
permit parking, right, residential permits just for the street, but then there was also discussion about the actual parking lot itself, so I think what,
And the reason council decided to just do the residential was because we can't, if we give you free parking spaces in the parking lot, then we have to give everybody free parking spaces in the parking lot.
well, my suggestion was that just for the residents that are there now, that they would have a permit to park, since they are accustomed to those spaces that were taken away, give them a permit to park in the preferred parking lot for the time that they live there, and then once they move out, then the permit goes away, and the new tenants or new residents would then have to become accustomed to walking. They know that they are not parking in the parking lot. That is only extended to the current residents because they have grown accustomed to the parking that was provided to them. So that's my suggestion. So that would be, I think, there's 10 houses there that.
That's what he wanted us to have.
But they'll have free reign of every spot on that block.
But it's all down there. None of it's near their houses. And, I mean, you have.
And the
you have
parking
people
that
that
is
are
taken away is not cut out like the other end.
I
So
understand
there
that.
was parking, ample parking for everybody.
I-
And then they put the sidewalk in, and
sidewalk, and then plus.
then they put they blacktop the parking lot above.
No, on the other side. There was, we're on the side of the house. There was also there were another 2 spots where cars could park, but then when I went back again, there was no parking sign put in, and they couldn't park past that sign anymore. So it's like, wow, they
Yes.
just lost 2 spots there. So they lost the 9 across the street, the cut-ins, they lost lost that one in the Main Street last year, and then they lost these two as well. So it's a significant impact. I don't think it's unreasonable because of the specific situation here. It's a unique situation that is for these particular residents just for a limited time to give them.
It's a unique situation to everybody who can't park anywhere.
Well, no, because their parking was taken away. Here's a question: who owns the sidewalk now? Is that Main Street? Because the sidewalk goes nowhere. I mean, I don't know if you knew that. The sidewalk goes absolutely nowhere.
And nobody even uses it. They don't even use the sidewalk.
But so my question is who owns that sidewalk? Is that the boroughs or the Main Streets? 'Cause
Steve, you know,
That entire property there was always, it was the manufacturing plant and it was S&S development. It always has been. They parked there, but they never owned it. When they bought their homes, it didn't come with the homes. It was always someone else's property. Whether they had the right to park there or they had permission, I don't know, but they didn't, when they built the townhomes, they put the sidewalk in, they took their property.
okay, so the townhome owns that property where the parking was, and then now where the sidewalk is, the townhouse people put them in. It's not borough.
Probably that far up. I mean, we acquired the parking lot from the developer, so I don't know where the property line is there, but, so it could be borough to a certain point. I don't know how far up it goes with the sidewalk, it may be the end.
That's always an option, if any of it's borough owned, if, putting in, trying to convince them that the parking spots there.
it would be,
I mean, I don't understand why we would rip out a perfectly good sidewalk. If you want to get free parking, just tell them to park in the parking lot. You know what I mean? I don't know why we would rip out sidewalk.
do the residents on this block, would they want residential parking just for them on that street?
I'm sure they.
I believe it.
Then what we need is a petition stating that you guys want residential parking on the Jefferson Avenue block, 100 block.
Do we need them to do that if they have this, do they have to do it again? I mean, can't we just?
I don't know, that's just a template of a petition, because we
Because
want
the
to write
petition
it down.
says what you're signing, so if you change it, you can't just
I mean, it's just a piece of paper. We can add whatever you want.
Well, wait a minute, we don't have to act on the petition, we can act on our own report. And
No,
just say this.
for this, I don't believe you can.
We can't
Because
find
this is
that.
not, no, because it's not the issue that's addressed in the petition. This is a whole separate issue, so and we can, let's ask the solicitor.
So do you think that we can create
It's
our
not
own
the
parking authority, or our own parking areas, just willy-nilly, like we could say,
We could
any
give them-
street, we could say, without the residents' knowledge or consent, we could take any street in the borough and be, well, I'm trying to understand your position here. So any street, we could say, this is now special parking,
We have that authority.
without the residents even knowing.
What do we need, 80% of the block? Residents?
I don't know that the residents know.
But let's ask the solicitor, do we have to?
I would not want
Excuse me.
somebody
Excuse
doing
me.
that to my
Hold
parking.
on.
No, I don't.
That's the procedure in place for
Do-
parking.
No, no. Do we have to go by, by a petition? Is that a policy
Yes.
we have? that
No,
it's-
but there is also a parking ordinance that we just spent a year working on to sell permit parking in that lot. We need to amend the ordinance. If folks aren't going to buy permits, then we need to amend the ordinance to allow for residential parking in that parking
Well, I
lot.
thought we just did the streets.
We're talking about the street.
The street
We're talking about the
needs
petition.
70% of the residents for residential parking program. That's the ordinance. You
Okay,
can't
so
just
you will
assign
need
it,
to
you
get
need
a
a petition
petition for
by
just
70% of the residents.
Okay, I did not know that, so thank you. I didn't realize that is the process. Okay, so can you tell them then specifically how do they need to report that? So I think they're providing.
It's pretty easy. I mean, they wrote on here, the following residents on Jefferson Avenue are requesting permanent parking on the Jefferson Avenue parking lot. We can just include and residential parking on the 100 block of Jefferson. And that, we'll give them permits.
Not the parking lot.
On the street, on the
Just on the
100 block of Jefferson Avenue. We can add that, or change it, or whatever you want to do.
But we will need new signatures.
No, I think
No.
if everyone goes out and they verify and you tell the residents this is what we're doing, then we can do it. Because they signed for parking, free parking spots in the lot, so.
Yeah, but we, as council, agreed not to give away the spots in the lot. We agreed to do residential parking on the street.
Well, then I needed to say residential parking on the 100 block, and each one of the signatories will need to know what they're actually signing, so.
So what are they told by someone of authority?
My name is Lisa Wong, I live at 169 Jefferson Avenue. I don't have a car right now, but I'm here as a support from my neighbors. It's tough for them to really, there's some that park there in front of the cars, in front of the house, but it's an overflow, and that's every day. And I'm just sitting back and watching, I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I feel that they should be able to have at least their permit in front, and at least one extra up on the hill. I mean, you should see them trying to park here 1, 2 o'clock in the morning when they come home from work. There's some people that come up like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm up browsing around. I'm like, she has to go to work. And if they park on the one side, they're afraid to get a ticket.
I understand.
And I don't even have a car, and I'm trying to help them out just by coming here at the meeting. I think it'd be worthwhile to just give them at least one up on the hill. And either you have to designate it on the ground, or with a sign stating that what these 4 or 5 are for. I just think it's all fair. I mean, they work every day, they work hard. They shouldn't have to come home at 10, 11 o'clock at night and try to find a parking space.
Especially with the people in the new houses that got ample parking there, and they still come.
And they park, and the people across the street, they park in our places.
The residential parking.
I just don't understand, if you're gonna have Pennsylvania Avenue, we only park on one side of that street. So there are people that, they're doubles and triples and apartments all up and down that street.
Right.
So if they don't find a space in front of them, they have to wander down the street as well. So we are giving you those spaces on the street, but you may have to walk.
But
But it applies to all over the borough.
And there's one house down the street at the beginning of Red Line. That one household has 5 cars.
Well, they would only get a permit for 2, and then they're gonna have trouble with
Their
their.
other 3 cars would get ticketed if they park on that street.
Okay, you're gonna give us a ticket.
That's what we're recommending.
You're gonna postpone it, you're gonna say this. That means if you can't get them in there, what's gonna happen then?
If you have 5 cars in one house.
I'm saying, if you got one car in each house, and you can't get them in that street.
Everybody faces parking problems in the borough. Everybody on the west end faces the same issues. If we give away our parking lot, we're gonna have to give it away to everybody.
We did one on East Church as well. There's only one car on East Church. There's only one car out for their residents.
Parking on East Church is horrendous. And we had to do the same thing. Yeah, it was 1 permit per household, right?
1, not 2.
Church Street.
East Church.
I could see too.
We do appreciate what you're saying, but it's just, it's all over the
The
borough.
argument was the amount
All
of
over
the
the borough.
apartments, which was ridiculous.
Mount
Westchester don't even charge that much. So they was trying to say, what was it, $200 and some dollars per resident? Westchester don't even charge it, Westchester charges $20. And you get
So-
2 per household plus 2 guests.
Do you understand what type of petition you'll need to sign?
Yeah, I'm making clear for street parking.
And again, it's gonna be just for your neighborhood, just 2 for each house. So you should be able to fit there.
So the group petitions say that they're petitioning the Borough Council to designate that Jefferson Avenue, that's residential permit parking. That would be appropriate.
Yeah, that would be.
So did you guys hear that? The petition could be worded that you're petitioning Borough Council to designate that was
100 block of
100 block
Jefferson.
of Little Jefferson as a residential permit parking. So that will at least that will secure your street so that only people with the permits can park on the street. And only two permits per household. So at least.
You need to go there and look at this, 'cause I don't believe on that.
At
I
least-
tried, I tried on one side, I couldn't get.
Well, I think the only other option, if you wanted to get everybody on the street, is to do then you do that, and then people are gonna be getting ticketed right and left.
So why was the sign put there which took away 2 parking spaces?
don't know.
Was it endangerment? Was it because of the beginning of the curve, or
I don't know.
because of the sewer, or what was it?
I don't know what the
You
sign
did-
I don't know who
The
owns
driveway.
it.
No. What was that, sir?
Yeah, the driveway.
There was a driveway, Jack.
Yeah, there is a driveway coming soon, but I don't think it,
I think it was put, it's not impacting the driveway.
I don't think it-
But
it
I
has a
would
few
say
feet.
It could be closer. They could probably gain at least one spot.
Well,
or two. But
I would
that's-
imagine that there's certain ordinances that restrict how far.
Anyway, so did that help as far as just getting that petition going, and then from there, I don't know, maybe.
so if they park on the right side, are they gonna get ticketed? Without there being a sign
The
there?
whole street would be residential park.
Now, the upper Brandywine, where the bump out is, where the
Okay.
angle parking is there, that's all included.
No, right there, like we're like 160,
On the upper side, away from Brandywine Avenue,
yes. That side would
That's
have
no
added the
parking.
sidewalk
that
If-
would continue to be no parking.
on the right-hand side. So
Going up the
that's,
street, yes.
so that's like 4 spaces right there that they could use.
You can't fit down there with cars parking on both sides.
They do, if like, I don't know, they do encourage you to slow down, but it's, I look back and I mean, it's hard for them. And I think because the street, because in most blocks, they have like another, 5 or 6 feet, but not this street. You got the alleyway. You know what I'm saying? So that takes away a space right there.
This is the best option we got right now.
You want your original petition back so you could change the wording and then just maybe everybody initial it.
I'll be back.
All right, moving on. Municipal bid auction.
Yeah, as you know, a month or 2 ago, Borough Council authorized the sale of some surplus equipment we had. In our advertisement, we inadvertently made a mistake thinking that we would have the August 17th meeting. So what I'm asking is that you allow Borough staff to complete the transaction of the auction and complete the sale to the highest bidder, and then we can ratify that with the final numbers on the September 7th meeting, whatever that meeting is, in September.
Yes.
So that's kind of what I'm requesting now, is that you authorize staff to complete the transaction of the auction and then ratify the sales at the September.
You need a motion for that? Or-
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Any discussion?
When's the auction end?
When is it closed, Jeff? 15th?
When the next council meeting would be?
7th.
Okay, so
It's good.
we close, I believe, the 16th.
16th.
I believe 1 o'clock.
My fear is if we let it go and say, okay, well, you bought it, but you can't have it until September, some people get cold feet and they don't show up. Rather complete the transaction, there was no reserve option, and I think we're already doing better than what we got on the vehicles, so I don't think there's gonna be enough.
Motion and second, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, carries unanimous. All right. Any updates? Pat? Pat?
Audit says down Jefferson Ave, Borough parking lot, within the meeting minutes.
I'll talk to you right after the meeting, we're almost done, we're finishing up here. Any updates, Jeff?
Summer Jam was another smashing success, and we got one more.
When?
Black Friday of this month.
August 26th.
There you go.
And?
Yeah, the wall appeals is still up for this rest of the week, I believe, over in Friday. So encourage anybody who didn't get there to go to the wall appeals and listen to the experience.
Oh, I heard about Terry.
August 17th and August 24th meetings are canceled. canceled. The next borough council meeting is September 7th.
I have a point of information on that, question for you. And this just kind of occurred to me, because I know at the last meeting, there were a couple councilors who were just saying, oh, wait, we didn't want to wait the whole month for another meeting. So here's my question, and maybe this will start can help kind of rectify this. Ordinances, like with this ordinance, we're talking about the parking, that in order to give permits or something, we would have to amend the ordinance. So my question is, the meeting schedule are set by ordinance. So in order to cancel meetings, is that, how?
Meetings only need to be advertised. At the beginning of the year, we put out an advertisement that says the Borough Council will have a meeting the first, third, and fourth Wednesday of the month.
Okay.
It's easier to cancel a meeting. If you don't advertise it, you can't have it. You can cancel it, just by website, door postings, notification of public meetings. But if we didn't advertise it, we couldn't have them if we needed them.
So does our ordinance say that, is the ordinance just that we're going to be setting meeting dates, or does the ordinance say that it's the first, third, and fourth Wednesday of the month?
I think it's the first, third, and fourth Wednesday of
It's
the month.
first, third, and fourth, but I don't know about an ordinance. It just says public meetings can be advertised. So that's why we do it in
We
January.
set the meetings first, third, and
But
fourth.
we don't pass an ordinance to set the meetings.
That's done at reorganization, you just set your own meeting dates, you need an ordinance to do that. So you can cancel them, they're already meeting dates set at the beginning of the year. There's nothing you need to do to cancel them other than to announce that they're going to be canceled.
So then, as far as canceling the meeting, is that at the discretion of the chair? Or would that, like, say if other council members were like, no, we want to have that other meeting, would it have to go to a vote?
Yeah, but you meet against the council president.
No, I think council president's the one that gets to choose whether or not to cancel or not.
We can verify that, but Millie said that we do advertise as needed too. The advertising, so it's the first, third, and fourth as needed. So if it's announced at a public meeting that it's canceled, we don't have to pay them.
But that's an advertising, so that's not set in ordinance. The fact that it's advertised is set by ordinance.
I think the Borough Code
Advertising itself.
designates that we advertise.
That's, thank you, that's what I was.
All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.